Marriage is supposed to be a partnership. Ours was more like a hostile merger with terrible Wi-Fi and even worse communication protocols. I'm Nate Forrester, 43 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years debugging other people's security systems while my own life got hacked right under my nose. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in our Evanston home. Harper was already dressed for another day of conquering the advertising world, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her power suit crisp enough to cut glass. She stood at our granite kitchen island, scrolling through her phone with the intensity of a day trader watching the markets crash. "Coffee's getting cold," I said, nodding toward the expensive machine she'd insisted we needed. "Can't drink it. Running late for the Goldstein meeting." She didn't look up from her screen. "Emma, hurry up or you'll miss your ride." Our 17-year-old daughter appeared at the top of the stairs, backpack slung over one shoulder. Emma had inherited my brown eyes and Harper's stubborn streak, though thankfully she used it for good instead of whatever Harper was up to these days. "Dad, can you drive me? Mom's friend Trina is picking up Jessica first, and you know how she drives." Harper finally glanced up. "Trina drives fine. You're being dramatic." "She rear-ended a parked car last month," Emma shot back. "I'll take you," I said, grabbing my keys. "Owen, you ready?" My 13-year-old son emerged from the family room, controller still in hand. "Can I finish this level first? I'm about to beat the boss." "School starts in 30 minutes, not 30 hours, I replied. Harper was already heading for the garage. "I'll be late tonight. Client dinner with the Vance account." Josh Vance. The name made my jaw tighten, though I couldn't quite explain why. Maybe it was the way Harper's voice changed when she mentioned him, or how often his name had been coming up in conversations lately. Josh Vance, her business partner. Josh Vance, who drove a silver Porsche and wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Josh Vance, who had never worked a real day in his life thanks to his trust fund, but somehow managed to charm every client who walked through their agency doors. "Another client dinner?" I asked. "That's 3 this week." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It's called building relationships, Nate. Some of us have to work for our success instead of just sitting behind a computer all day. The garage door rumbled open, and she was gone before I could respond. Emma raised an eyebrow at me. "Smooth, Dad. Real smooth." "Your mother's under a lot of pressure at work," I said, though the excuse felt hollow even to me. The drive to school was quiet, except for Owen's commentary on his gaming strategy and Emma's occasional directions. After dropping them off, I sat in my car for a moment, watching other parents navigate their morning routines. Everyone looked tired, stressed, running on caffeine and obligation. When had life become so complicated? My phone buzzed. A text from Dave, my coworker and probably my only real friend these days. "Coffee later? Got some interesting intel on that security breach we discussed." Dave worked in our company's digital forensics division. He was the guy they called when someone needed to track down corporate espionage or figure out how sensitive data had walked out the door. He was also the only person who'd noticed that I'd been asking a lot of questions about phone tracking and data recovery lately. I typed back, "Noon, the usual place." The usual place was a small cafe near our office building, the kind of spot where the coffee was strong and the Wi-Fi was stronger. Dave was already there when I arrived, his laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. "You look terrible," he said without looking up. "Thanks. That's exactly what every man wants to hear." "I'm serious. When's the last time you got a good night's rest?" I thought about it. Harper had been staying up late, claiming she was working on presentations, but I'd noticed the soft glow of her phone screen and the occasional quiet laugh that didn't sound work-related. "It's been a while," I admitted. Dave closed his laptop and leaned forward. "Want to talk about what's really going on?" I'd known Dave for 8 years. We'd started at the company around the same time, bonded over our shared appreciation for old detective novels and newer technology. He was one of those guys who could read people as easily as he read code. "Harper's been acting strange lately. Distant. Secretive. Strange how?" Late nights, mysterious phone calls, sudden interest in girls' trips with friends she barely tolerated 6 months ago. Dave nodded slowly. "You think she's having an affair?" It wasn't a question. The word hung in the air between us like a virus waiting to infect everything it touched. "I think something's going on. I just don't know what." "Want me to help you find out?" I stared at my coffee cup. This was the moment where I could choose to trust my wife, to believe that 15 years of marriage meant something, that the mother of my children wouldn't betray everything we'd built together. Or I could choose to trust my instincts. What would that involve? Dave glanced around the cafe, then leaned closer. Phone records, location data, social media analysis. All completely legal if you're on the family plan and have legitimate concerns about unusual activity. Is that what we're calling it? That's what the courts call it. Spouses have a right to investigate suspicious behavior that might affect family finances or child custody. The mention of my kids made the decision for me. Emma and Owen deserved to know the truth, whatever it was. How long would it take? Give me a week, maybe less if she's not being careful about her digital footprint. That evening, Harper came home after 9, claiming the client dinner had run late. She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine and had a small stain on her blouse that looked suspiciously like red wine. How was dinner? I asked. Fine. Productive? Josh thinks we can close the Morrison account by Friday. There was that name again. Josh Vance, the golden boy with the trust fund and the Porsche and the apparent ability to work miracles with difficult clients. That's great news. Where did you go? That new Italian place downtown. You wouldn't like it. Too fancy. I almost laughed. Harper had been trying to drag me to fancy restaurants for years. Since when did she think I wouldn't like expensive Italian food? Maybe we could go sometime, just the two of us. She was already heading upstairs. Maybe. I'm exhausted. Don't wait up. I sat in our living room for a long time that night, listening to the sounds of Harper getting ready for bed. The water running, the soft thud of shoes hitting the floor, the whisper of fabric. Normal sounds of a normal evening in a normal marriage. Except nothing felt normal anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your wife looked beautiful tonight. Josh is a lucky man. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Someone had sent this to me on purpose. Someone wanted me to know. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Dave. His response came immediately. Game on. Dave's investigation took exactly 4 days. 4 days of watching Harper smile at her phone. 4 days of listening to her make mysterious plans. 4 days of pretending everything was fine while my world shifted beneath my feet like quicksand. The evidence arrived in my email at 2:47 p.m. on a Friday, neatly organized in a folder labeled Digital Forensics Report, Confidential. Phone records showing dozens of calls and texts between Harper and Josh, often late at night. Location data placing them at the same hotels, restaurants, and other venues during times when Harper claimed to be working late or out with girlfriends. Social media analysis revealing a private group chat between Harper, Josh, and Harper's friends Trina and Blair. The group chat was the worst part. Dave had somehow gained access to months of messages, and reading them felt like watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Harper. Nate's been asking questions about my schedule, getting suspicious. Trina. Maybe it's time to tell him the truth? Blair. Are you crazy? He'll take half of everything. Better to wait until after the Vance merger goes through. Josh. Don't worry about Nate. Guys like him always suspect but never act. Too comfortable, too scared of change. Harper. He's not a bad person, just boring, predictable. I need more excitement in my life. Blair. Josh certainly provides that. Remember that weekend in Milwaukee? You couldn't walk straight for 2 days. The messages went on like that for pages. My wife and her friends discussing my shortcomings, my predictability, my apparent inability to satisfy Harper's need for excitement. Josh's contributions were particularly galling, dismissive comments about my profession, my appearance, my parenting style. But the final screenshot was the one that made me close my laptop and sit in silence for 10 minutes. It was a selfie of Harper and Josh, arms wrapped around each other, clearly taken in a hotel room. Harper was wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Josh was shirtless, smirking at the camera like he'd just won the lottery. The caption read, "When your husband thinks you're at a marketing conference." I forwarded everything to my personal email, then called Dave. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "I know this isn't what you wanted to find." Actually, it's exactly what I needed to find. Now I know what I'm dealing with. What are you going to do? I looked around our house. The house Harper and I had bought together, decorated together, filled with memories of birthday parties and Christmas mornings and quiet Sunday afternoons. The house where we'd raised our children and built what I thought was a life together. I'm going to make sure she regrets underestimating me. The opportunity came sooner than expected. That weekend, Harper announced that she wanted to invite some friends on our upcoming family vacation to the Lake Michigan rental house we'd booked months ago. "It'll be fun," she said over breakfast Saturday morning. "The kids love Trina and Blair, and it's a big house. Plenty of room for everyone." "What about Josh?" I asked casually. "Is he coming too?" Harper's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. Josh? Why would Josh come on our family vacation? I don't know. You three seem to spend a lot of time together lately. Thought he might want to join the fun. Don't be ridiculous. Josh has his own plans. But I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Within an hour, she was on the phone with Trina, speaking in low voices and glancing at me occasionally. By Sunday evening, the plan had crystallized. Harper, Trina, Blair, and, surprise, surprise, Josh would all be joining us at the lake house. Josh's presence was explained as a last-minute addition because his original vacation plans had fallen through. The more the merrier, I said, smiling at Harper. This should be interesting. The lake house was a 3-hour drive north of Chicago, nestled among pine trees with a private dock and enough bedrooms to accommodate our expanded group. Harper had booked it through some luxury rental service, the kind of place that came with Egyptian cotton sheets and a wine cellar. We arrived on a Thursday afternoon in 2 cars. Harper rode with Trina and Blair, chattering excitedly about their weekend plans. I drove Emma and Owen, listening to them speculate about why Mom had invited her friends on our family vacation. It's weird, right? Emma said. She's never done this before. Your mother wants to spend time with her friends. Nothing wrong with that. But why now? And why did she invite that Josh guy? He's kind of creepy. I glanced at Emma in the rearview mirror. Creepy how? He stares at Mom weird, and he always finds excuses to touch her arm or her shoulder when they're talking. It's gross. Out of the mouths of babes. If my 17-year-old daughter could see what was happening, how had I missed it for so long? Josh arrived an hour after we did, his silver Porsche crunching up the gravel driveway like some kind of automotive peacock display. He emerged wearing designer casual clothes and expensive sunglasses, looking like he'd stepped out of a luxury car commercial. Nate! He strode over with his hand extended, flashing his practiced smile. Thanks for letting me crash your family vacation. I promise I'll try not to get in the way. No problem at all, Josh. Mi casa es su casa. We shook hands. His grip was firm, confident, the handshake of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. I matched his pressure and held it a beat longer than necessary. Looking forward to getting to know you better, I said. Something flickered behind his eyes, but the smile never wavered. Likewise. Dinner that first night was a masterclass in subtle flirtation. Harper had changed into a sundress that showed off her figure, and she kept finding excuses to lean close to Josh, laughing at his stories, touching his arm when she made a point. Trina and Blair played supporting roles, steering conversation toward topics that made Josh look good and me look boring. Work stories that highlighted his client relationships and my technical background. Travel anecdotes that showcased his adventures and my preference for staying home. Nate's such a homebody, Harper said, refilling Josh's wine glass. I practically have to drag him out of the house for anything more exciting than grocery shopping. Nothing wrong with appreciating the simple pleasures, Josh replied smoothly. Though I have to admit, I'm more of an adventure seeker myself. Life's too short to play it safe all the time. Emma caught my eye across the table and rolled hers dramatically. Owen was absorbed in his handheld gaming device, oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around him. After dinner, the group migrated to the deck overlooking the lake. Harper and Josh sat close together on the porch swing, their conversation too quiet for me to hear. Trina and Blair flanked them like bodyguards, occasionally glancing in my direction to make sure I wasn't getting too close. I excused myself to check on the kids, then slipped into the master bedroom where Harper had left her purse. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, unlocked and unguarded. The group chat was still active. Josh. Phase 1 complete. He suspects, but he's not doing anything about it. Harper. I feel bad lying to him like this. Blair. Don't go soft now. You said you wanted out of this marriage. Trina. Josh is right. Nate's too passive to make waves. Just keep playing the part until we figure out the exit strategy. Josh. Trust me, I've dealt with guys like Nate before. All bark, no bite. I screenshot the conversation and sent it to my own phone, then returned Harper's device to exactly where I'd found it. Back on the deck, I settled into a chair with a beer and watched the show. Harper and Josh were getting bolder, their body language more intimate. At one point, Josh's hand rested on Harper's knee for a full 30 seconds before she gently moved it away. Beautiful night, I said to no one in particular. Gorgeous, Josh agreed. Nothing like being out on the water to put things in perspective. Absolutely. Sometimes a change of scenery helps you see things more clearly. Josh looked at me then, and I saw the exact moment he realized I might not be as oblivious as he'd assumed. The confident smile faltered for just a second before snapping back into place. Well, he said, standing up, I think I'll turn in early. Long day tomorrow if we're going out on the boat. Good idea. Rest up. You'll need your energy. After Josh disappeared inside, Harper lingered on the deck with her friends for another hour, their voices growing louder as the wine took effect. I stayed in my chair, nursing my beer and listening to them discuss their plans for the weekend. He's perfect for you, Trina was saying. Smart, successful, gorgeous, and that body... Shh, Harper giggled. The kids might hear. They're asleep, Blair said. Besides, they're not blind. They can see how happy Josh makes you. It's not that simple. There are complications. Like what? Nate? Trina's voice dripped with disdain. Please, he'll probably be relieved. Then he can spend all day playing with his computers without anyone bothering him. I finished my beer and stood up. Ladies, I'm heading to bed. Try not to wake the neighbors with your girl talk. They fell silent as I walked past them into the house. In the hallway, I paused outside Josh's room and heard the soft murmur of a phone conversation. Oak told you this would work. He's completely clueless. By the end of the summer. I couldn't make out the rest, but I'd heard enough. Back in the master bedroom, Harper was already under the covers, her back turned toward my side of the bed. Fun evening, I said, changing into pajamas. She replied without turning around. Josh seems nice. Very attentive. He's a good friend. I'm sure he is. I climbed into bed and lay there in the darkness, listening to Harper's breathing gradually slow and deepen. When I was certain she was asleep, I pulled out my phone and started making plans. If Josh thought he was dealing with a passive, predictable husband who would simply give in, he was about to learn otherwise. The next morning brought the kind of perfect Michigan summer weather that makes people write songs about the Great Lakes. Clear skies, gentle breeze, water so blue it looked like a postcard. It was the perfect day for the kind of family vacation I'd been looking forward to for months. Instead, I woke up to the sound of Harper giggling in the kitchen with Josh while they made coffee together like some kind of domestic couple. Morning, sunshine, Harper called when I appeared in the doorway. Josh was just telling me about this great hiking trail he found online. Josh stood at our kitchen counter in running shorts and a tank top, looking like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine. There's this waterfall about 2 miles up the ridge. Perfect for a morning hike if you're up for it. Sounds great, I said. The whole family could use some exercise. Actually, Harper said quickly, I thought maybe just the adults could go. The kids seem pretty happy here by the lake. Emma appeared behind me, already dressed for the day. I love hiking. Can I come? Harper's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Maybe next time, honey. This trail might be too challenging. I've hiked harder trails than that, Emma protested. Remember when we went to Colorado last summer? Your mother's right, I said, putting a hand on Emma's shoulder. Why don't you and Owen explore the shoreline instead? I saw some interesting rock formations yesterday. Emma gave me a look that said she knew exactly what was going on, but she nodded and grabbed a piece of toast from the counter. The hiking expedition departed an hour later. Harper, Josh, Trina, Blair, and me. I made sure to bring my phone, my camera, and a small digital recorder I'd borrowed from Dave's collection of surveillance equipment. The trail was beautiful, winding through dense forest with occasional glimpses of the lake through the trees. Josh took the lead, playing tour guide and pointing out various flora and fauna with the confidence of someone who'd watched a lot of nature documentaries. Harper stayed close behind him, asking questions and laughing at his jokes. Trina and Blair flanked them like wingmen, keeping up a steady stream of conversation designed to make Josh look knowledgeable and adventurous. I brought up the rear, ostensibly enjoying the scenery while actually recording everything. So, Josh, I called out during a rest stop, Harper tells me you grew up around here? Not exactly here, but close enough. My family had a place on Lake Geneva when I was a kid. Ah, Lake Geneva, very exclusive. Your parents must have done well for themselves. Josh's jaw tightened slightly. They worked hard for what they had. I'm sure they did. What business were they in? Finance, investment banking. Interesting. So you grew up around money. I grew up understanding the value of financial success, Josh replied carefully. Harper jumped in. Josh has built an amazing client base from scratch. He's got such a natural talent for reading people. I bet he does, I said. Must be useful in your line of work, being able to figure out what people really want. Josh stopped walking and turned to face me. For a moment, his mask slipped, and I saw something calculating behind his eyes. What exactly are you getting at, Nate? Nothing at all, just making conversation. We stared at each other for a long moment while Harper, Trina, and Blair watched nervously. Then Josh's smile returned, and he turned back toward the trail. Well, we should keep moving if we want to reach the waterfall before lunch. The waterfall was spectacular. cascading down a 50-foot cliff into a crystal-clear pool surrounded by moss-covered rocks. Josh immediately started taking selfies with Harper, posing like they were a couple on their honeymoon. I used my own camera to document everything, making sure to capture the intimate body language, the lingering touches, the way Harper looked at Josh like he was the most fascinating person she'd ever met. "Get a picture of all of us," Harper called out, handing me her phone. I took several shots, making sure to get clear images of Harper and Josh together. Then I handed the phone back and watched Harper scroll through the photos, deleting the ones where she didn't look perfect. "Send me the good ones," Josh said, giving Harper his number. I made a mental note of his phone number, then pulled out my own device and pretended to check messages while actually activating a location tracking app Dave had installed. The hike back was more of the same, Josh playing the charming outdoorsman, Harper playing the appreciative audience, and me playing the oblivious husband while gathering intelligence. That afternoon, while the others lounged by the lake, I volunteered to drive into town for supplies. The local grocery store had terrible cell service, but the parking lot had excellent Wi-Fi, which was exactly what I needed. I uploaded all my photos and audio recordings to a secure cloud server, then called Dave. "How's the vacation going?" he asked. Like watching a really bad reality show. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore. "Getting good evidence?" "Tons. Photos, audio, location data. Josh is practically marking his territory." "What's your next move?" I looked back toward the lake house, where I could see Harper and Josh sitting close together on the dock, while my children played in the water nearby. "I'm going to give them exactly what they think they want. A passive, predictable husband who won't make waves." "That doesn't sound like you." "Trust me, sometimes the best way to win a game is to let your opponents think they're already winning." That evening's dinner was a repeat of the previous night, except more so. Harper had changed into an even more revealing dress. Josh had somehow acquired a tan that made his teeth look impossibly white, and Trina and Blair were practically taking notes on flirtation techniques. I played my part perfectly. The boring husband who didn't notice his wife's wandering attention, who was more interested in his phone than the conversation, who excused himself early to check on work emails. Instead, I went to Josh's room and spent 20 minutes installing a few pieces of software on his laptop, which he'd left open and unlocked on the desk. Dave had taught me well. The programs were invisible, undetectable, and would give me access to everything Josh did online. I also placed a small recording device behind the headboard of his bed. If Harper decided to pay him a late-night visit, I wanted documentation. Back in the master bedroom, Harper was getting ready for bed when I walked in. "You've been quiet tonight," she said, brushing her hair at the vanity mirror. "Just tired. Work stuff on my mind." "You should try to relax. We're on vacation." "You're right. I should try to be more present." Harper turned to look at me, and for a moment I saw something like guilt in her eyes. "Nate, are we okay? I mean, really okay?" This was my chance. I could confront her, lay out everything I knew, demand the truth. We could have the conversation that might save our marriage or end it cleanly. Instead, I walked over and kissed her forehead. "Of course we're okay. Why wouldn't we be?" Relief flooded her face, followed immediately by something that looked like disappointment. "No reason, just sometimes I feel like we're drifting apart. Marriage goes through phases. We'll be fine." I climbed into bed and pretended to fall asleep quickly, listening to Harper toss and turn beside me. Around midnight, I heard her get up and pad quietly across the room. Through barely cracked eyelids, I watched her slip out the door. I gave her 5 minutes, then followed. The house was dark except for a strip of light under Josh's door. I crept close enough to hear voices. Harper's nervous whisper and Josh's confident murmur. The recording device would capture everything, but I caught enough to understand the gist. Harper was having second thoughts about their plan, whatever it was. Josh was reassuring her, telling her everything would work out, that I would never suspect anything. "He's not as stupid as you think," Harper was saying. "Trust me, I know his type. All these IT guys are the same. They live in their heads, not the real world. He might have suspicions, but he'll never act on them." "What if you're wrong?" "I'm not wrong. Guys like Nate don't take risks. They don't make waves. They just accept whatever life hands them and try to make the best of it." I smiled in the darkness. Josh was about to learn that he'd seriously misjudged his opponent. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and drove back to town, ostensibly for an early morning run, but actually to upload the previous night's recordings and make some phone calls. The first call was to Harper's boss, Rena Goldstein. "Nate, this is unexpected. Is Harper all right?" "She's fine, Rena. I'm actually calling about a potential problem with the Vance account." "What kind of problem?" I've been doing some cybersecurity consulting on the side, and I happened to notice some unusual activity on social media that might affect Harper's professional reputation. I sent Rena a carefully edited selection of photos and screenshots, nothing that would reveal my surveillance, but enough to raise questions about Harper and Josh's relationship and its potential impact on their business partnership. I thought you should know, I concluded, in case clients start asking questions. Rena was quiet for a long moment. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll look into it. The second call was to a lawyer Dave had recommended, specializing in family law and asset protection. I need to understand my options, I told her, hypothetically speaking. By the time I returned to the lake house, everyone was awake and planning the day's activities. Josh suggested taking the rental boat out for a cruise around the lake. Great idea, I said. I love being out on the water. Harper looked surprised. Since when? You usually prefer staying on dry land. I'm trying to be more adventurous. Isn't that what you're always telling me? Josh's confident smile flickered for just a moment. He was starting to realize that the predictable, passive husband he'd been counting on might be more complicated than he'd assumed. As we prepared for our boat trip, I made sure to pack a few extra items in my bag, items that would come in handy for the surprise I had planned for Josh. It was time to show him just how unpredictable this boring IT guy could be. The boat trip started innocently enough. Josh naturally appointed himself captain despite having no more boating experience than the rest of us. Harper positioned herself as his enthusiastic first mate, while Trina and Blair served as the admiring crew. I sat in the back with Emma and Owen, watching Josh navigate the lake with the kind of overconfidence that comes from never having faced real consequences for your mistakes. Dad, why is Mom acting so weird? Owen asked quietly, his gaming device forgotten in his lap. What do you mean? She keeps laughing at everything that guy says, even when it's not funny, and she's using her fake voice. Emma nodded. Her customer service voice. She only does that when she's trying to impress someone she doesn't really like. My kids were more perceptive than I'd given them credit for. They could see what was happening even if they didn't fully understand it. Your mom is just being friendly to our guest, I said. That's not being friendly, Emma replied. That's being fake. About an hour into our cruise, Josh decided to show off by taking us through a narrow channel between two small islands. The water was shallow and rocky, exactly the kind of place where an inexperienced captain could get into trouble, which gave me an idea. Josh, are you sure about this route? I called out. Those rocks look pretty close to the surface. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, he replied without turning around. Famous last words. I pulled out my phone and started recording as Josh steered us directly toward a submerged boulder that was clearly visible from my angle. Harper was so busy gazing adoringly at his profile that she didn't notice the danger. The boat hit the rock with a grinding crunch that threw everyone forward. Josh spun the wheel frantically, gunning the engine and making the situation worse as the propellers scraped against stone. Cut the engine, I shouted, jumping up from my seat. Josh finally listened, and we drifted to a stop in about 3 feet of water, the boat listing slightly to one side. Is everyone okay? I asked, checking on Emma and Owen first. They were fine, just startled. Trina and Blair were clutching each other dramatically, acting like we'd just survived the Titanic. Harper was staring at Josh with an expression that wasn't quite as adoring as before. What happened? She asked. Just a little navigation error, Josh said, trying to restart the engine. It made a horrible grinding noise and died immediately. I waded around to the back of the boat and examined the propeller. We're not going anywhere with this engine. Propeller's damaged, and I think we cracked the lower unit. Josh's face went pale. How much is that going to cost to fix? Probably more than your insurance deductible, I replied cheerfully. Good thing I got the premium coverage when I rented this thing. It took 2 hours for the marine towing service to reach us. 2 hours of sitting in the hot sun while Josh tried to explain to Harper how hitting a clearly visible rock wasn't really his fault. 2 hours of watching his confidence evaporate as the reality of the situation sank in. I spent the time taking photos and making notes, documenting Josh's poor decision-making for future reference. That evening, back at the lake house, the mood was considerably more subdued. Josh had retreated to his room, claiming he needed to make some business calls. Harper was quiet and distracted, the spell of his charm temporarily broken. After dinner, I volunteered to clean up while everyone else relaxed on the deck. This gave me the perfect opportunity to check the recordings from Josh's room. The audio was crystal clear. Josh was on the phone with someone, and he was not happy. Told you this would be easy. The husband's more observant than we thought. Need to accelerate the timeline. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but Josh's responses painted a clear picture. No, I don't think he knows everything yet, but he's asking questions. Harper's getting nervous. We might need to move to Plan B sooner than expected. Plan B? This was getting more interesting by the minute. I uploaded the recording to my secure server and sent a copy to Dave with a message. Need deep background check on Josh Vance ASAP. Something bigger going on here. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. Rena Goldstein arrived at the lake house in a black Mercedes, looking like she'd driven straight from a board meeting. Harper, we need to talk, she announced without preamble. Harper went pale. Rena, what are you doing here? How did you even know where to find us? Your husband was kind enough to provide the address when he called me yesterday. All eyes turned to me. I shrugged innocently. You mentioned Rena might need to reach you for urgent business matters. I was just being helpful. Josh appeared from inside the house, looking like he'd been listening from the doorway. Ms. Goldstein, he said smoothly, extending his hand. What brings you all the way up here? Rena ignored his outstretched hand. I think you know exactly why I'm here, Mr. Vance. She pulled out her phone and showed them something on the screen. I couldn't see what it was, but Harper's face went white and Josh's jaw clenched. This is a private family vacation, Harper said weakly. Nothing's private anymore, Harper. Not in our business. Rena's voice was ice-cold professional. I've received several calls from clients asking about the nature of your relationship with your business partner. Apparently there are photos circulating on social media. I had no idea what photos she was talking about, but I kept my expression neutral. We can explain, Josh started to say. I'm sure you can, but explanations don't undo damage to the agency's reputation. Harper, I need you back in Chicago immediately. We have a crisis management situation to handle. What about the vacation? The vacation is over. Pack your things. We're leaving in an hour. Rena turned to me. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Nate. You may have saved us from a much larger scandal. After she left to wait in her car, Harper turned on me with fury in her eyes. What did you do? I didn't do anything. I just made a phone call expressing concern about some things I'd observed. What things? I gestured toward Josh. The way you two have been acting. The touching, the flirting, the private conversations. I thought your boss should know in case it was affecting your professional relationship. Josh stepped forward, his friendly mask finally slipping completely. You had no right to interfere in Harper's career. I have every right to protect my wife's reputation and my family's interests. Your family's interests? Josh's voice was rising. What about Harper's happiness? What about what she wants? What exactly does Harper want, Josh? Why don't you tell me? For a moment, I thought he was going to confess everything. His face was flushed with anger, his fists clenched, his careful composure completely shattered. Then Harper grabbed his arm. Don't, not here, not in front of the kids. Emma and Owen had appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. They stood there taking in the scene, their mother clutching another man's arm, the stranger who'd invaded their family vacation looking like he wanted to hit their father, the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Mom? Emma's voice was small, uncertain. Harper released Josh's arm and tried to compose herself. It's okay, honey. Just a work emergency. I have to go back to Chicago early. What about our vacation? Your father will stay with you. We'll finish it another time. Within an hour, Harper was gone, riding back to Chicago with her boss to face whatever professional consequences awaited her. Trina and Blair packed up and left separately, their vacation mood thoroughly ruined. Josh was the last to go. He loaded his bags into the silver Porsche while I watched from the deck, making no effort to help or say goodbye. Before he drove away, he walked over to where I was standing. This isn't over, he said quietly, so the kids couldn't hear. You're right, I replied. It's just getting started. After everyone left, the lake house felt peaceful for the first time since we'd arrived. Emma and Owen seemed relieved to have their father's attention back, and we spent the rest of the day doing the kind of family activities I'd originally planned for the trip. That evening, as we sat around a campfire roasting marshmallows, Emma asked the question I'd been expecting. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? I looked at my daughter's serious face, illuminated by the firelight, and realized I owed her honesty. I don't know yet, sweetheart. We have some things to work out. Is it because of that Josh guy? Partly. Owen looked up from his marshmallow. I didn't like him. He was mean to you. How was he mean to me? He talked to you like you were stupid, like he was better than you. Emma nodded. And he made Mom act weird, like she was pretending to be someone else. My children had seen everything I'd seen, understood everything I'd understood. They deserved to know that their father wasn't going to just accept whatever life handed him. Sometimes, I said carefully, people make choices that hurt the people who love them. When that happens, the people who got hurt have to decide how to respond. What are you going to do? Emma asked. I looked out at the dark lake, thinking about Harper and Josh back in Chicago, probably planning their next move, still convinced they were dealing with a passive, predictable husband who would never fight back. Yeah, I'm going to make sure they understand exactly who they're dealing with. We returned from the lake house to find Harper already gone. She'd moved out of our bedroom and into the guest room, claiming she needed space to think about our relationship. Her clothes were still in our closet, her toiletries still in our bathroom, but she'd established a clear boundary that felt more permanent than temporary. The kids noticed immediately. "Why is Mom sleeping in the guest room?" Owen asked over breakfast. "She's having trouble sleeping," I said. "Sometimes couples need a little space to work through problems." Emma gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it, but she didn't press the issue in front of her younger brother. Harper left for work early and came home late, claiming she was dealing with the fallout from whatever crisis Rena had mentioned at the lake house. She was polite but distant, treating me like a roommate rather than a husband. Josh, meanwhile, had apparently decided that subtlety was no longer necessary. He started showing up at our house at odd hours, claiming he needed to discuss business with Harper. He'd sit in our living room, drinking our coffee, acting like he belonged there. The first time it happened, I was working in my home office when I heard his voice in the kitchen. "Think we should tell him soon," Harper was saying. "Not yet. Let me handle Nate. Guys like him respond better to direct confrontation from another man." I saved my work and walked into the kitchen, where I found Josh sitting at our breakfast table like he owned the place. "Josh, what a surprise." "Hey, Nate, hope you don't mind me stopping by. Harper and I needed to discuss some urgent client matters." "Of course, though I have to say, you two seem to have a lot of urgent matters lately." Josh's smile was sharp-edged. That's what happens when you're building something significant. Some people understand ambition, others don't. I understand ambition just fine. What I don't understand is why these urgent business discussions always seem to happen in my kitchen. Harper jumped in before Josh could respond. We were just finishing up. Josh was about to leave, but Josh didn't move. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and studied me with the kind of calculating look I'd seen him use on difficult clients. "Actually, Nate, maybe it's time we had a man-to-man conversation." "About what?" "About what's best for everyone involved." I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. "I'm listening. Harper's unhappy. I'm sure you've noticed. She's outgrown this," he gestured around our kitchen, "suburban family life. She needs more challenge, more excitement, more opportunity to reach her full potential." "And you're offering those things?" "I'm offering her a chance to build something extraordinary, a business partnership that could become much more." Harper was standing frozen by the counter, her face pale, watching this conversation unfold like a spectator at a tennis match. "Much more how?" I asked. Josh leaned forward. "Look, I'm not going to insult your intelligence. You know what's happening here. Harper and I have connected on a level that goes beyond business. We're good together. Really good." "I see. The question is, what are you going to do about it? You can make this difficult for everyone, especially the kids, or you can be mature about it and help us transition to a new arrangement that works for everyone." I sipped my coffee and considered his proposal. Josh was watching me intently, probably expecting me to explode or break down or do something predictably emotional. Instead, I smiled. "That's an interesting offer, Josh. Very generous of you to think about what's best for everyone." He looked surprised by my calm response. "So, you'll consider it?" "Oh, I'll definitely consider it. In fact, I've been doing a lot of considering lately." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo, one of the many pictures I'd taken at the lake house showing him and Harper in an intimate embrace on the dock. Josh's confident expression faltered. "Where did you get that?" "I took it, along with quite a few others." I swiped to the next photo, then the next. Josh and Harper holding hands on the hiking trail. Josh and Harper sharing what looked like a kiss by the waterfall. Josh and Harper sitting together on the boat, her hand on his thigh. "You've been spying on us?" Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "I've been documenting suspicious behavior. There's a difference." Josh recovered his composure quickly. "So what? You have some photos. That doesn't change anything?" "You're right. Photos are just the beginning." I switched to the audio app on my phone and played a snippet of one of Josh's late-night phone conversations. "Told you this would be easy. The husband's more observant than we thought. Need to accelerate the timeline." Josh went very still. "You recorded private conversations?" I recorded conversations that took place in my rental property, involving my wife and a guest I was gracious enough to invite on our family vacation. Harper sank into a chair. Nate, what are you doing? I'm protecting my family's interests, something I should have started doing a long time ago. I put my phone away and looked directly at Josh. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my house right now, and you're not going to come back. You're going to end whatever relationship you think you have with my wife, and you're going to find a new business partner. Josh laughed, but it sounded forced. Or what? You'll show people some photos? Big deal. So Harper and I are attracted to each other. That's not a crime. No, but fraud is. The laughter stopped abruptly. What are you talking about? I had a very interesting conversation with a forensic accountant yesterday. Apparently, there are some irregularities in your business expenses. Client dinners that never happened, travel costs for trips that were actually personal vacations, consulting fees paid to companies that don't seem to exist. Josh's face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm an IT security specialist, remember? I know how to trace digital transactions, how to verify expense reports, how to find patterns in financial data. I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. The question is, what am I going to do with this information? What do you want? Josh's voice had lost all its confidence. I turned back to face him. I want you to disappear from our lives. Completely. No more business partnership with Harper, no more late-night phone calls, no more showing up at my house. And if I don't? Then I share my findings with the IRS, the State Attorney General's office, and every client you've ever worked with. I also share the photos and recordings with your wife. Josh stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone again and showed him a draft email addressed to multiple recipients, with attachments ready to send. Try me. For a long moment, the kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Owen playing video games in the family room. Finally, Josh walked to the door. This isn't over, Nate. Yes, it is. After he left, Harper and I sat in silence for several minutes. She was staring at her hands, tears streaming down her face. How long have you known? She asked finally. About the affair? A few weeks. About Josh's financial irregularities? I just found out yesterday. What financial irregularities? I looked at her carefully. You really don't know? She shook her head. Josh has been embezzling from your agency, falsifying expense reports, creating fake consulting contracts, skimming money from client accounts. You're lucky Rena found out when she did, or you might have been implicated as his business partner. Harper's face went white. That's impossible. Josh wouldn't. Josh would and did. The man you've been having an affair with is a criminal, Harper. He's been using you to legitimize his operations and gain access to client accounts. I don't believe you. I handed her my phone with Dave's forensic report displayed on the screen. See for yourself. She read in silence, her expression growing more horrified with each page. Oh, God, she whispered. What have I done? You had an affair with a con man who was using you to steal from your employer. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? Harper looked up at me with desperate eyes. Can you fix this? Can you make it go away? I studied my wife's face. The woman I'd loved for 15 years, the mother of my children, the person who'd betrayed everything we'd built together. I can try, I said finally, but it's going to cost you. What do you mean? I mean our marriage is over, Harper. You made that choice when you decided to have an affair, but I'm willing to help you avoid criminal charges if you agree to my terms for the divorce. She nodded slowly. What terms? Full custody of the kids, the house, and my retirement accounts remain untouched. You can keep your car and whatever's left of your career after this mess gets sorted out. And if I don't agree? I gestured toward my phone. Then Josh isn't the only one who gets reported to the authorities. You signed off on those expense reports too, Harper. You approved those fake consulting contracts. In the eyes of the law, you're just as guilty as he is. Harper closed her eyes and took a shuddering breath. You've really thought this through, haven't you? Not some. I've had plenty of time to think while you were sneaking around with your boyfriend. She opened her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been respect. I underestimated you. Yes, you did. So did Josh. So did everyone who thought the boring IT guy would just roll over and accept whatever you decided to do to him. Harper stood up slowly, looking older than she had that morning. I'll need time to process all this. Take all the time you need, but Josh stays away from this house and away from our family. That's non-negotiable. After Harper left the kitchen, I sat alone at our breakfast table, looking around at the room where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we'd helped our kids with homework, where we'd planned our future together. My phone buzzed. A text from Dave. "How did it go?" I typed back. "Phase 1 complete. Josh is neutralized." "What about Harper?" I looked toward the stairs where I could hear Harper moving around in the guest room, probably packing more of her things. "Phase 2 begins now." 3 days later, Josh made his final mistake. I was working in my home office when Emma burst through the door, her face flushed with anger and fear. "Dad, that Josh guy is outside. He's yelling at Mom in the driveway, and he looks really angry." I could hear raised voices through the window. Josh's silver Porsche was parked at an angle across our driveway, blocking Harper's car. He was gesturing wildly while Harper stood with her arms crossed, shaking her head. "Where's Owen?" "Upstairs playing games with his headphones on. I don't think he heard anything yet." "Good. Stay here and keep the door locked." I grabbed my phone and headed outside, making sure to start recording before I opened the front door. "Told you this was temporary," Josh was shouting. "You can't just cut me off because your husband threatened you." "Keep your voice down," Harper hissed. "The neighbors will hear." "I don't care about the neighbors. I care about you throwing away everything we built together." That's when Josh noticed me walking down the driveway. "Perfect," he said, turning toward me with fury in his eyes. "Here's the man who's been destroying our lives. Josh, you need to leave, now." "Or what? You'll call the police? Show them your little photos and recordings? If necessary." Josh laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won. I think you're trespassing on my property and harassing my wife." "Your wife?" Josh's voice rose to a shout. "She stopped being your wife the first night she came to my bed." I heard a sharp intake of breath and turned to see several neighbors had come out of their houses, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from next door was standing on her porch with her phone in her hand, probably recording everything. "Josh, please," Harper said quietly. "Just go. We'll talk later." "No, we'll talk now." Josh grabbed Harper's arm, pulling her toward his car. "You're coming with me, and we're going to sort this out." That's when I stopped being the passive, predictable husband and became something else entirely. I moved faster than I'd moved in years, crossing the distance between us in 3 quick steps. My hand clamped down on Josh's wrist with enough pressure to make him release Harper immediately. "Take your hands off my wife." Josh tried to pull away, but I held on. "Let go of me. Let go of her first." For a moment we stood there in a bizarre tug-of-war, Josh trying to drag Harper toward his car while I maintained my grip on his wrist. Then Josh made the mistake of swinging at me with his free hand. I ducked easily. 15 years of weekend basketball had kept me in better shape than Josh's gym membership, and used his momentum to spin him around and push him away from Harper. Josh stumbled backward and fell against his Porsche, his expensive shirt tearing on the side mirror. "You assaulted me," he shouted. "Everyone saw it. I'm calling the police." "Please do," I replied calmly. "I'm sure they'll be very interested in your financial irregularities." Josh's face went through several color changes as he remembered the evidence I had against him. "This isn't over," he said, pulling out his car keys. "Yes, it is." But instead of leaving, Josh did something that surprised everyone. He pulled out his phone and started making a call. "Hello, police. I'd like to report a domestic disturbance. A man just attacked me in front of his house." I looked around at my neighbors, all of whom had witnessed Josh grabbing Harper and swinging at me first. Mrs. Patterson was still recording with her phone. "Josh," I said quietly, "you really don't want to involve the police." "Why not? Afraid they'll see what kind of man you really are?" "No, afraid they'll see what kind of man you really are." I pulled out my own phone and played the audio recording of Josh's phone conversation from the lake house, the one where he'd discussed accelerating his timeline and moving to Plan B. Josh's face went pale as his own voice filled the air, talking about manipulating Harper and deceiving me. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. "I told you, I'm good with technology. I'm also good at research." I switched to a different app on my phone, one that displayed a comprehensive background report on Josh Vance. "Did you know Josh's real name is Joshua Vancetti? Did you know he's been married 3 times and all 3 wives divorced him for adultery and financial fraud? Did you know he's currently under investigation by the SEC for securities violations?" Harper stared at Josh with growing horror. "Is that true?" Josh looked around desperately, realizing that his carefully constructed facade was crumbling in front of an audience of suburban neighbors with smartphones. "You don't understand," he said to Harper. "I can explain everything." "Explain what? That you've been lying to me about everything? That you're a career criminal who seduces women to gain access to their money and their businesses?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Josh?" I asked. "Why don't you tell everyone exactly what your plan was?" Josh's composure finally snapped completely. Fine. You want to know the truth? Harper was supposed to be an easy mark. Unhappy suburban housewife, successful business, access to client accounts. I've done it a dozen times before. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Harper took a step backward, her hand over her mouth. But then I actually started caring about her, Josh continued desperately. It wasn't supposed to be real, but it became real. I love her. You love her money, I corrected. You love her business connections? You love what she could do for you? Josh lunged toward me then, but he was too angry to be coordinated. I sidestepped easily and let him stumble past me into Mrs. Patterson's rose bushes. That's when the police arrived. 2 squad cars pulled up to our house, their lights flashing but sirens off. 4 officers got out, looking around at the scene. Josh extracting himself from thorny bushes, Harper standing in shock, me holding my phone with incriminating evidence displayed, and half the neighborhood watching from their porches. Someone called about a domestic disturbance? The lead officer asked. That would be me, Josh said, pointing at me. This man attacked me. The officer looked at Mrs. Patterson, who was still holding her phone. Ma'am, did you witness what happened? I recorded the whole thing, she said, holding up her device. That man, she pointed at Josh, grabbed the lady and tried to force her into his car. The husband intervened to protect her. The officer took Mrs. Patterson's phone and watched the video, his expression growing more serious with each passing second. Sir, he said to Josh, you're under arrest for assault and attempted kidnapping. What? No, he's the one who attacked me. The video shows you grabbing the victim and attempting to force her into your vehicle. It also shows you throwing the first punch. As the officers handcuffed Josh, he turned to Harper with desperate eyes. Tell them the truth. Tell them we're together. Tell them you came willingly. Harper looked at the man she'd been having an affair with, really looked at him for perhaps the first time. She saw the desperation, the manipulation, the complete lack of genuine feeling beneath his practiced charm. I don't know this man, she said quietly. He's been stalking me and my family. Josh's face contorted with rage as the officers led him toward their squad car. You'll regret this, all of you. I have connections. I have lawyers. You'll need them, one of the officers replied dryly. As the police cars drove away with Josh in custody, the neighbors gradually dispersed, returning to their houses with enough gossip to fuel conversations for months. Harper and I stood alone in our driveway, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For protecting me, even after everything I did to you. I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt a complex mixture of emotions. Anger, disappointment, sadness, but also a strange kind of relief. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for Emma and Owen. They don't deserve to have their mother dragged away by a criminal in front of the whole neighborhood. Harper nodded, tears streaming down her face. What happens now? Now you call Rena and tell her everything. You cooperate fully with the police investigation into Josh's financial crimes. You hope that your cooperation is enough to keep you out of prison. And us? There is no us anymore, Harper. You made that choice when you decided Josh Vancetti was more exciting than the boring suburban life we built together. I turned to walk back toward the house, then paused. The divorce papers will be ready by Friday. I suggest you sign them. As I climbed the steps to our front porch, I could hear Harper crying behind me, but I didn't turn around. Inside, Emma and Owen were waiting in the living room, their faces full of questions. Is Mom okay? Owen asked. She will be. Are you getting divorced? Emma's voice was steady, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I sat down on the couch between my children and put my arms around them. Yes, we are. But that doesn't change how much we both love you, and it doesn't change the fact that you'll always be the most important thing in my life. Emma leaned against my shoulder. I'm glad that Josh guy is gone. He was scary. He can't hurt us anymore. Owen looked up at me with his serious 13-year-old expression. Dad? Yeah? Next time we go on vacation, can it just be us? No weird adults? I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. Next time, we're going somewhere with no cell phone service and no business partners, just us and maybe some fishing poles. Sounds perfect, Emma said. Outside, I could hear Harper's car starting up, then driving away. I didn't know where she was going, and I realized I didn't care. For the first time in months, my house felt like home again.